it's like walking into your house and somebody painted it just a shade different than what it was before. And you know something's off, but I can't really figure out what's wrong here.
That is such a great
Um,
analogy.
That's right. Promo UPFront, honey in the pick, the mullet, a full podcast.
Look in my eyes, what do you see? The cult of Kirbyality. And that's how we're going to start off episode number 192 of the Promo UPFront
Good
podcast.
Lord.
I am one of your hosts, Bill Petrie. With me, as always, let's call him the pawn of personality himself, the one and only Kirby Hasseman. Kirby, how the heck are you?
I'm doing well, doing really well, actually. We're making big changes. I don't know, you and I haven't actually talked about this offline either. So we're making big changes here in the office. So we own Simple Signs and Print, and all of Simple Signs and Print is moving up to the second floor, and all of the
Okay.
stuff that's up on the second floor is moving down. It is
Including you?
no, except for me. Me and
Okay.
Dustin are still going to stay, but like everything else is going
Okay.
down. So it's a giant move, but we made big strides yesterday.
Mhm.
I feel much better than I deserve based on the amount of crap that I lifted in the last couple of days. So I'm doing well, man. How about you?
I'm doing great. Well, you're feeling well. That's a testament to your fitness level, which I can attest to. You were here in Franklin, Tennessee last week. So no,
That's
I
fun.
think that's awesome. So you're rearranging things,
Yep.
probably certainly for to make sure there's enough room for all the things
Yeah.
that you're doing, but also maybe an aesthetic reason.
Sure.
So things look a little more kick-ass. And as you were talking, Kirby, it got me to thinking, as things often do, I know when you're moving, you're probably going, man, you know what we need? We need some really kick-ass merchandise. Is that an accurate statement?
Of course. Why would we not want that?
Absolutely. It's the type of merchandise that elicits that wow and aha you love to get from clients. And
Yep.
Kirby, I'm here to tell you, look no further than our friends over at Seven Sourcing. That's right,
Okay.
because they are experts in the field. They work with distributors to help them source custom orders directly from fully vetted overseas factories. And that's
Love it.
without having to deal with the factory. Seven Sourcing has a super strong pedigree when it comes to navigating direct custom merch sourcing, as their team has over a quarter century of successful importing experience. And I think we know how important that is. Even better, though, Kirby, when they work directly with each distributor on brand strategy, product development, product sourcing, order management, quality control, compliance, and logistics. It's a lot. In other
Yeah.
words, what they really do is demystify direct custom sourcing. And while they source merchandise at the absolute lowest price possible, they'll never sacrifice quality or safety to meet those price points. And I absolutely love that, especially,
Mhm.
as we look at making sure we're responsible in our industry. Seven Sourcing isn't interested in meeting expectations. They only strive to exceed them. And Russ Mogel and his team, such a great group of people. Kirby, I know you're a big fan of what they do and the service they provide.
Yeah, and again, I think one of the things that we all say we are is creative, right? It's one of those things, those buzzwords that we all use to stand out, but it's the same. The reality of it is they are creative and allow us to
Oh
be
yeah.
more creative than they can with that off the shelf thing. And so it allows us to live up to the thing that we actually say that we are. So kudos to them.
100%. If you go to their website or follow them on social media, you can see a lot of the creative projects that they do. And here's the thing. Yeah, it takes a little bit longer. The average order is about 75 days, but isn't that extra planning worth it to get that wow moment? Kirby and I sure as hell think so.
Yep.
So when you're ready to move away from off-the-shelf solutions and wow your clients with something that's really off the wall, when you're ready to take a great idea and turn it into an iconic brand, go
Nice.
ahead and reach out to Seven Sourcing at sales@sevensourcing.com. All right, Kirby, you have the upfront portion of the podcast today. Gee golly, I wonder what we're going to talk about.
Every once in a while we get a layup, right? Every once in a while we get a layup. And to be fair,
Every
go ahead.
every week you have up front, we get a layout.
That's totally not true. And to be fair, had you just been a little bit more patient last week, we'd have had a layup last week. But we recorded. You were the gracious host, and I was there in studio with you, standing right beside where you are right now. And we did it just in advance of PPAI launching the Online 18 for companies last week. So we missed that because it happened right out. I mean, and folks, when I say it just happened, like we recorded it, I was still editing the podcast at Bill's kitchen table when the email came out. And I was like, damn, we missed the opportunity to talk about it. So yes, the Online 18, both for companies and for individuals came out. So what I thought I'd do real quick is just give a quick background on it. And then I have a few takes, and I just wanted to kind of get your take on my take. How about that? Just something different than
I would like to give takes on your takes, and then hear other people's takes from your takes and my takes combined.
Yes.
At a time of their choosing.
I love it. Okay. So first of all, it was hilarious to me last week, just really quickly, that they led the article with a clip from our podcast saying, hey, they should have just explained that it was a different list and it would have made more sense. And then they wrote an article around it being a different list. So honestly, PPAI, thank you. I thought that was cool. I understood it way better. And I think that the idea of having the companies and the individuals, that evolution, now that I understand it, makes sense, and I dig that. But I'm going to talk more about the Online 18 individuals this time. Okay. So a couple things, just shout outs to the top 5. I'm not going to go through every person because that'll take some time, but we got Jeremy Picker, then Danny Rosen, Jolie Goodson, Mitch Silver, and then the numero uno, Nick Latour. So congrats to everybody on the list, especially the new faces. That's great. And of course, you know, those folks in the top 5, that's really cool. You know, you and I have both had the opportunity on this list for a long time. And it really is an honor. So here are my random thoughts from the shower this morning. And I wanted your take on each one. Yeah, I painted a picture just for you. Okay. So here's my first one. The more you criticize PPAI, the higher you are on the list. So, and here's what I mean by that. So last year, you were just one above me. And one of the things that they said as sort of a reason in the article was that you were willing to have the hot takes. You were the person who said the things that nobody else was willing to say. And so that was like one of the justifications that they gave for you being one step ahead of me, which is great. You deserve that. This year, apparently I was the person who was a little more critical because they actually said that I gave them constructive criticism. And so then this year, I was one ahead of you on the list. So my takeaway from this is that the more I criticize, the higher I probably will be on the list. So what do you think about that?
I think you're wrong. I think it's funny. Here's the thing. I was 11 last year. And transparency, as Kirby would say, as long as Dale has been doing this list, and then he handed it over to the PPAI editorial team, and it's a lot of work, and they, they do a great job. There's no skewers here. You and I have been on the list every year, which is amazing and to honor and all that. I feel like I'm even Steven. You know, I've been 1, I've been 4, but I've been between 13 and 8-ish. Yeah, almost every year. I'm like just even Steven.
I love it.
And one of the things they said about, consistent. Thank you.
Yeah.
And one of the things they said about me is Bill is willing, Bill is saying what everybody else is thinking.
Yeah.
I'm not going to share what I'm thinking right now. No, I'm kidding. I don't know if there's, I don't know if it's people who criticize PPAI would be higher on the list.
I'm mocking, of course.
I know. Yeah. But I do think the editorial team appreciates candor.
Yes,
I also believe they appreciate being challenged. That knowing Josh Ellis the way I do, and Johnny Opping and the whole group there, it's a great group of folks. They're smart enough to know that they don't know it all, and so I think they're willing to take respectful barbs, and so. Your barb was very respectful last year, and it was accurate because it was a bit confusing. It was less confusing this year. So not only did you leapfrog like 8 people on the list, you also, you caused PPI to change how they listen to you. You caused how change how they.
I do love it.
I don't know. I can't talk. Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. Your
point about them taking not only did they take it, they seek it out. So yes, kudos on that. Okay, next take. And again, these are just silly thoughts that I had, so take it. So I remember when this list started, And there were some industry folks that mocked it. Didn't necessarily mock the list, but sort of mocked the people who were on the list. Oh, these
Right.
people that want to be the cool kids and whatever.
Right.
Now companies, and I know we're going to dive into this more, but now
Mhm.
companies are looking at this list and making hiring decisions off of it. And so I
Mhm.
think it's interesting because you say, well, what's the value of a personal brand? Yeah, there is some.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's that
I actually had this. I had this as a separate topic, so we might branch off here
Yep.
for a few minutes.
Okay, that's fine.
And the topic title was "Big Names Making Big Moves," because what
Yep.
you have Charity Gibson and Meg Erber going to Proforma, very big people in the
Yep.
industry, very big personalities. Joshua Pospisil going to AIA recently, and then HPG, Jen Quaranta, JQ, Kate
Yep.
Plummer, Alex Sims,
Yep.
Nick Latour's already there. It almost looks like an arms race of, that's why, honestly, that's why I sang the Cult of Personality today,
Yeah.
because of the Cult of Kirbyality, um, because it seems like, we talk often about building a personal brand and what is the value of that. And I think we're seeing kind of a manifestation of that as companies like HPG, companies like Proforma, and companies like AA, they seem to be seeking specific people out
Sure.
based on the brand they've built. And so, it's going to be interesting to watch for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you want me to dive into this now, or do you want to come back to it later? Your choice.
It's up to you. It's your time, your dance floor, Kirby.
Well, let's just, so I am fascinated by this. And just for the purpose of discussion,
Yeah.
you said that those organizations are seeking those people out. And that may
Yep.
be true. And that certainly is a way to view that. I would also
Yeah.
say that, if you're looking at a couple different candidates, which I'm sure all those folks, whenever they're looking for a position,
Sure.
they're probably considering different candidates. And if you look at those candidates and their qualifications seem similar, they're on the fence, you got this, you got that, I think having a powerful personal brand can break through that. And I think that as an organization, utilizing that as a tool in the toolbox to decide a hire is interesting. And I think it does go toward why you might want to build a personal brand, because it's a lot of work to do it.
So possibly, yes, it is a lot of work to do it. And I'll say
Yep.
possibly, because here's the thing. When I'm trying to figure out exactly how to say this, because I
Sure.
feel like I'm walking in a minefield here.
Yeah.
When if what you're saying is all things being equal
Sure.
for a candidate, it may be beneficial for an organization to hire someone more well known and by inference more well connected in the industry.
Sure.
On that surface, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. I don't know if that's always equal, though. I think
Sure.
sometimes it's easy to get blinded, for lack of a better term, by the popularity or
Star
stardom.
power.
That
Yeah.
doesn't make anyone more or less potentially effective in the job they are undertaking.
Sure.
It's just, I don't, I do think sometimes people get blinded by that.
Sure.
You and I have experienced it, and you and I talk about it, how weird it is. You and I are pretty candid on this podcast, and we'll walk around in Vegas either together or individually, and people come up to us and they almost have weird look in their eyes, almost starstruck. That's a little strong, but certainly like, oh my gosh, there's Kirby, or oh my gosh, there's Bill. And we're just like, we're dopes. You have no idea what dumbasses we are. And we just yap on a podcast. And so that is strange. And I don't think that stops. I mean, if you ran into a certain celebrity or influencer or
Sure.
someone you admired, you might find yourself tongue-tied. You might find yourself
I
blinded to
have.
whatever faults that person may or may not have. I think the other challenge with I think that industry connections and industry popularity, for lack of a better term, industry influence, I think that is a really good thing to have, but there is a point of diminishing returns, because I have seen, and none of the people we've mentioned, so I want to be very clear on that, but I've seen where some people, it's very clear they're focused more on their personal brand than the company they work with.
Right.
So when you are building your personal brand and then you get hired by a different organization, you have to balance, okay, I'm still going to work on my personal brand, but that has to become also part of the company I am getting checks from. I look back at my time on Promo Corner. I went all in on Promo Corner, and
Sure.
so I built that brand just as much, if not more, than my own personal brand during that time. I think that's important to really, from a mindset shift, make sure that the person you're employing is doing that, but as an employee saying, all right, I'm going to shift a little bit, and make sure that what I am doing is through the lens of the company I work with.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I do think that's fair. I would also say that if you have built a personal brand or a brand for your own organization, I mean, you think about it. Let's take it away from the online 18 for a second, but
Yeah.
just like to say, okay, if you've built a small business and
Yeah.
you've built a niche and you've built a brand for your own, and somebody
Yeah.
acquires your company, the idea that they want to keep you on to help build, like, okay, we're going to buy the business, but we also want you. The idea that you
Yeah.
might be able to help them do the same thing for their business is not a crazy leap. Like, that's a
No.
reasonable thing to do. So I don't get me wrong. There are times where something happens and you kind of go, that's interesting, and that's a different
Yeah.
thing. But the idea that A plus B, I can see where that would equal C. And so I think it's just fascinating. Like, and I think
Yeah.
the reason that I think both of us wanted to talk about the idea that, man, some of these folks who've been on the online 18 that have built amazing personal brands have jumped all in a really small window of time. A, it is interesting, and B, it's what a lot of people are talking about. So it's one of the things that you and I have committed to talking about on the podcast, is the things that people are talking about that nobody's talking about.
1000%. And one thing I think it's important for employers to remember, when you specifically use the metric of industry influence or industry personality or visibility in the industry, if you're using that as part of your hiring decision, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Don't do what I see a lot of employers doing. Don't all of a sudden start curtailing what they do. Don't start changing who they are and then wonder, well, why didn't this work? And I've seen that happen way too many times.
That's a
So
good point.
it's such a very delicate tightrope to walk. I think it's a challenge for both the employer and the employee. Before you go on your next take, Kirby, I have a quick sponsor read. Just
go for it.
A little palate cleanser, if you will. Kirby, I don't know about you, but when the weather starts to warm up, I think of just one thing and one thing only, and that's custom branded footwear from our good friends over at the Kanata Group. I mean, it's the logical thing to think about, isn't it?
Of course.
That's right. The fabulous Hydros are slide style sandals that are super comfortable. I've got a pair. They're fantastic. And they have a huge area for branding that will make everyone at the beach, the pool, so jealous of you walking around on these awesome slides. I tell you what, to see the Hydros and all the amazing footwear our good friends at the Kanata Group has, head over to thekanatagroup.com. You're not going to be sorry you did. Okay. I think we successfully navigated that. I don't think I'm going to get any hate emails, which is a really big win for me this week. All right, Kirby, what's your next take? Take 3.
So I think the next ones will be pretty quick. I should have done that last one last, so that's my fault. Okay. So one thing is, I just wanted to say, hey, great job to PPAI, sort of explaining the difference in the lists and the rationale for it. So just, that's really not much of a take, other than to say it was a piece of criticism I gave them last year, and I thought it made a ton more sense this year. Anything on that? You're good.
I think, again, I think I mentioned earlier, I think when you're making a subjective list, and I go back and forth on how I really feel about subjective lists, it's hard to criticize. It's also hard to congratulate, because it's so difficult to do. It's somebody's perspective. What I will applaud PPAI for is committing to doing it and putting their collective viewpoint out there for everybody to either celebrate or assail. That's not an easy thing to do. So, and I think, again, it's not easy to do. And I know Josh Ellis and his team, they solicited thoughts and opinions. I'm sure they asked you. I know they asked me. I think it's Jim Dandy fantastic.
Okay. So next take. I think it's the most brilliant list in the industry. And here's why. It's hard to criticize without being a douchebag. Right? It's really hard, because you can't, like, oh, well, Nick Latour, really? If you actually say that, and by the way, I think Nick's great. He's a perfect choice for number 1. But if I really felt like that and said it publicly, I mean, you're a jerk,
Yeah.
right? Even because it isn't.
Yeah.
But then, and then the other reason I think it's subjective or that it's brilliant is that you've taken people who, by definition on the list, are great at branding, personal branding, self promotion, and you've
Social
created a
media.
list that asks them to share it because it feels good.
Yeah.
My guess is the traffic to the website at PPAI is terrific on this.
Yeah. So I don't think it's the easiest list to not criticize. I think next week we're going to do the powerhouse women of promo.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
That's another one you can't really criticize. That was a tease, folks. That looked that made damn, that was professional broadcasting, and it's right there, just free. You get that type of broadcasting when you listen to Promo Front. I do think it's smart, and I'll tell you what's actually smart is restraint that PPAI shows by not telling everybody in advance, here's where you're at, here's a graphic we made for you, all that. They let everybody, they let
That's a great point.
everybody do their own thing. I've seen too many things, too many organizations try to control what quote unquote influencers do online.
That's a
And
great
I'll
point.
tell you what that does. It cheeses people off.
It also decreases creativity with a group that's creative.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're choking my creativity. And so I think when you just say, hey, here's a list, do what you want with it. I had a little fun with mine yesterday. I posted a picture of me with Whataburger and all that. So yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you there.
Okay, cool. Let's see. 2 more takes.
Hot take number 14.
Yeah, whatever it is. 2 more takes. So I always love the new faces. So I think one of the ways to look at the new faces on this list are, look, I don't know who they are. And so how big can they be? Whatever. But I think when you shift that to, wow, I don't know who they are, I need to know who they are and what they're doing. How can I learn from them? That's where I get the most value whenever I see new faces on the list. And there's some faces this year that I was like, oh, cool, they're new. Yeah. And so I immediately reached out, connected to all those people. And I'm like, okay, what are they doing that I can learn from? I think there's something there.
I agree. I looked at the list. I'm like, man, there's quite a few people I don't know here. And so, Stephanie Hinkle, I don't know. I connected with her yesterday. Someone named Taylor Borst, never heard of her. Connected with her.
Has, right?
Danny Rosin, apparently he works at a distributorship. I don't know him. Nick Later. Again, great people looking forward to connecting with. Now, I'm joking. And I know you mentioned Nick Latour earlier and how deserving he is of this. I wish you would be honest and say what you said to me before we started broadcasting, but I'm not going to out you about what you said about Nick. Because that's just not the type of broadcaster I am. We'll go with what you said publicly, which Nick absolutely deserves it. I think when I see, joking aside, when I see someone who I think intentionally built a very specific brand, it's always Nick that comes to mind. And I mean that in the best possible way. He's such a good-hearted human being if you happen to know Nick. And he is a really sweet, introverted guy, and his online presence is a little different than that, and I really love the fact that he has built that and built it to what it is. So no better deserving number one than Nick Later, or some people pronounce it Latour apparently. But again, I'm not going to out you for what you said earlier, but I just wish you'd be a little more authentic on the podcast. You've got to do you. You've got to do you.
What I told him is what I'll say publicly. I actually haven't said this on the podcast, is that his title at HPG's brand evangelist. I think he's become a brand evangelist for the industry. And I think that's really
100%.
Cool. Okay. Final take. Final take.
Take 72.
So it's right before they went into the list. They were like, we're going to give away the Dale goes to, and they said they're workshopping the name of the award, the Dale.
Yeah.
I freaking love that. I think it should totally be called the Dale. I'm in on that. What do you think?
Yep. I absolutely agree. Dale very wisely, very graciously, very smartly gave, when he took the job as president CEO of PPAI, he did it 1 year. And I believe you and I were very
he asked
saying what everybody was thinking on the podcast. He did ask and said, you can't do that. You just can't do that in that role. So the editorial team took it over. But I think the fact that Dale did start it, no one really understands why it's 18, not another number. And I love that. I think that having, some sort of award called the Dale, whether it's the newcomer, whether it's the most Dale-like, I don't know what the criterion should be. But I'm a big fan, and, I would like the Dale. I would like
Yeah, I
to
would put
add
it
the Dale.
right.
I
Yeah,
would I would I
put it
would
right over there.
treasure. But it's here's what if anybody's listening, I want the Dale needs to be a custom bobblehead of Dale. That's what the award needs to be. There's no if, ands, or buts about it.
I was just trying not to interrupt you because you're on a roll and it was good. But yeah, I think that's fun. Okay, so I've gotten through all my takes. Is that fair? I know we went a
Yeah,
little.
are we done with this?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
we're done
done.
with podcast
Yeah,
now. Are we?
well, we can do one more topic if you
I've
want.
got a quick one.
Okay, go for
I've
it.
got a quick one. All right, so I'm sure you're familiar. It's a pretty new company called Microsoft. Have you ever heard of them?
I have heard of them. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if you know this, but they changed their default font.
Okay.
Do you use Microsoft products at all, Kirby?
I do.
I don't
I
think so.
Outlook, Word.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm in.
Okay. So Calibri, which has been the default font for 17 years, has been dethroned, and now it's a font called Aptos. It's kind of confusing.
Yeah.
It just kind of showed up, especially
I
if you're using
agree,
the
yeah.
online versions. If you're using the online versions, it's like walking into your house and somebody painted it just a shade different than what it was before, and you know something's off, but I can't really figure out what's wrong here.
That is such a great analogy.
It's the weirdest thing. And so now the change was a long time coming. Apparently it was announced in 2021. I don't know how we missed that because
Why
I
would it
get
take
font.
3 years to change your font?
I don't know, but I get an email called Font Daily, and I don't remember this being covered at all. And so it was announced in 2021. Now the style harkens back to the 60s. And here's what Microsoft had to say about it. If there's something I love more than making Kirby giggle, it's corporate quotes to justify stupid things. Let's go to the tape. Microsoft said, Aptos, that's the new font. Aptos has the universal appeal of the late newscaster Carl Cassell and the astute tone of late show host Stephen Colbert. I am insane now, Kirby. I don't know what that means. And here's my thing. So I still use downloaded programs on my computer here at home. When I travel, they're cloud-based. On my home computer, it has not changed because I haven't updated it.
Right.
On the cloud, though, the default changed, and I don't care. That's fine. They need to change it. It needs to change. It was Times New Roman, or it was Arial before that, and before that was Times New Roman, and so on and so forth. But there should be like a pop-up that says, click here if you want to go to change your default or keep it the same. The fact that I have to go fishing to find everything or change my signature so the fonts match, that causes friction. And to me, that damages the Microsoft brand. So, Kirby, what say you about any of this? I'm just trying to kill time. We got a half hour to fill every week.
Yeah.
So that's all I got.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I thought I had done something wrong, and all of a sudden there was
somebody painted your walls.
And so I went and changed all my emails back to Calibri because I was like, I want it to look the way that I want it. It's looked. And so yeah, that's and the idea that you've announced it in 2021 and it like, dude, if of all the changes, it's actually a great example of a large corporation and how long it takes them to move the bus. Like it took them that long to change a font. You and I would have made that decision at lunchtime, and by 1:03, it just would have been changed.
Well, and here's the other thing. So when they announced Calibri was going goodbye, they listed the 5 possible fonts, and which one should it be? Aptos was one of the fonts. Now, it wasn't called Aptos. They changed the name
to protect
but they actually had one of the fonts. 3 years ago, they had one of the font. They had the font. They had it already picked out. One of the 5. My thing was, again, to me, and this kind of joking aside, you introduce friction. You're trying to force people to make a change they may or may not want to. All you have to do is put a pop-up in there and say, we've changed the default font from Calibri to Aptos. Do you want to keep your current default font selection Calibri, or would you like to move to Aptos? Click one or the other. That I get. I think that's smart of Microsoft to change. Say, hey, we want to update, refresh it. I have no issue with that. But the fact that you made me your user that has to spend money using your products every month, you increase friction in my world. I tell you what, I can tell you who's not getting the Dale. That's Microsoft.
I love that you have a hot take about this.
I've got
But your analogy about somebody came in and changed the color, that's pretty good. I like that one a lot.
Just a little shade off. It's like, man, something's different in here.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
And it
I
doesn't
tell you what,
match the kitchen.
no. I tell you what does always match though. It's when distributors need to get qualified overseas sourcing. That match there, that's your pals at Seven Sourcing,
Made
folks.
in
That's
heaven.
right. They make it happen. They've made it happen. They currently make it happen. And if you email them, they're gonna make it happen. That's three. That's the power of three, kids. That's right. So they demystify the direct custom sourcing. And while they source merchandise at absolutely the lowest possible cost, they will never sacrifice safety or quality to meet price points. So email Russ and his team over at sales@sevensourcing.com, and they're going to help you turn a great idea into an iconic brand. Sales@sevensourcing.com. Kirby, if I had an award to give you today, it would be the Mortimer.